Hi everyone! I hope you're all having a great week. Unfortunately, the very first part of the video did not record, and so I cannot offer it to you at this point. But I will tell you that it was a very light wash of two colors. The first was a light blue, and the second was a little bit of quinacridone deep gold. Both I applied in light washes, and then on the side where the blue was, I also sprinkled some salt before I let it all dry. So now I'm in the process of basically intensifying my colors, and I'm coming in with the same colors I used to start off, and I'm just repeating what I did. So even though you didn't get to see what I did when I first started, you're getting to see pretty much what I did to create the first layer in my second layer of paint. There's quite a bit going on for me at the moment, and my energy levels are just not what they used to be for whatever reason. So I'm trying to offer myself some grace, and for the day's project I am going to keep things as simple as possible. I'll mostly be working with two principal colors, one of which is this quinacridone deep gold that I'm applying right now, and I'm also going to be using some blue. I've chosen to work with these two colors because they complement each other well, and since I'm trying to keep my process as simple as possible, I also want to illustrate that we don't necessarily need a lot of different colors to create something that we enjoy to look at. I want to take a moment to send a great big thank you to each and every one of you for being so kind and supportive of me over the last few weeks. Well, over the last couple of years, really, but most especially over the last few weeks. I've had a lot of very encouraging and supportive comments, very kind words sent my way, and a lot of well wishes sent to me as well regarding my health. And I want to say that I really sincerely appreciate your kind words and thoughts and prayers. And I don't really know exactly what's going on just yet, but I am very well supported. I have, some great doctors and other healthcare professionals working with me to help me figure out what's going on. And I'm also being very mindful of my health, and I am slowing things down, as I've mentioned before, so that I can be very mindful of what my body is trying to communicate with me. So thank you for your well wishes. Thank you for your support and kind words. And I'm feeling very hopeful that this will all resolve at some point soon. And yeah, I'll keep you posted on how things are going. The blue I'm using for this project is called Cobalt Teal Light. It's a paint I got from Cormier Pigments, and I'm going to come back in and intensify some of those areas, being mindful not to get too close to the quinacridone deep gold that is in the middle because it's still wet. And if I were to touch the two paints together, they would turn into a bit of a greenish tinge, which I don't mind, but I don't want that color to take over the whole entire painting. And so I'm being very careful to apply it mostly to the side and away from that area of quinacridone deep gold. But in a moment I'll come in with my water bottle and I'll spritz the paint a little bit so it will travel slightly, and in those areas the two colors will blend, and it'll create an effect that I really like. As I mentioned at the beginning of my painting process, I want to keep this process very simple. And so my background, though it is just that, very simple, I am very satisfied with it. So I'm feeling happy and ready to move on to working with my pens to create my geologic abstract rocks. People ask me pretty frequently what my favorite pen to work with is, and I would have to say if I had to choose one, because it's difficult sometimes for me to think of narrowing it down to just one pen. This pen that I'm using right now, which is a fountain pen by Pilot called a Pilot Metropolitan, is a pen that I use very frequently. And one of the reasons I love to work with it, especially over watercolor paper, is that, of course, being that it's a fountain pen, it has a metal tip and it will not get ruined by the rough surface of the paper. So that's one of the reasons I love to work with this pen. I can also refill this pen with ink cartridges. I don't have to throw the whole pen out, so that's another reason I love working with this pen. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, that it also comes with a converter, and so I could actually fill the pen itself without necessarily needing to buy ink cartridges. But when I first got the pen, I wasn't really familiar with how fountain pens worked, and so I got some ink cartridges, and at the moment that's what I'm working with. But I really do love the idea of being able to refill a pen, especially since I use a lot of ink. You tend to go through pens very quickly that way, and so for me it feels like a more viable option to have to have a tool that you can refill rather than throw out and buy a new one every time. I don't know if they're very visible or not from your angle, but before I even came in with my ink and my pen, I had drawn in some very faint pencil lines. So this is a trick I use if I'm not 100% sure I'm going to be happy with the lines I'm creating. I come in first with a pencil to see if I want to keep the lines or not. If I prefer not to keep the lines, I can simply erase them. But once I'm satisfied, it also makes the process much easier for me to come in with my ink and just trace over the pencil lines. For every video I create, I always do my best to include a complete list of all the supplies I use to create the painting in the video. So if you're ever curious about the particular supplies that I'm using, please don't forget to check my video description. And of course, you can always reach out to me directly and ask questions, and I'll be more than happy to help. Another pen that I really love is the pen that I'm using right now, which is an extra fine tip Pentel Sleechy pen with black ink. It's got a 0.25 tip, and it creates these really, really fine lines that I can't create with any other pen I have, and so I love using it quite a bit as well. Nature really is one of my greatest sources of inspiration. When I'm out exploring, it is so easy for me to find different shapes or textures that I find really beautiful. And it is a great way to, I guess, get inspired to start a painting, to pick something that I see in nature as a starting point for a painting. Even if you live in a city and you're not very close to nature, walking outside in a city can be extremely interesting as well. Even just looking down at the sidewalk, I'm sure you can easily find cracked concrete or cracked pavement, textures on buildings. Textures and patterns are really all around us all the time. And so all we need to do is step outside our usual environment to see what's out there, and we can easily find inspiration. My star gold is going to be the perfect iridescent paint to complement this painting. It looks very similar in shade to my quinacridone deep gold, and it has that beautiful shimmery aspect to it that I think will just really make this painting even more interesting. And what's fun about this color in particular is that when I'm applying it over that section where the quinacridone deep gold is, it's not extremely visible just yet. You can see it when the light hits it, but when I move the painting, or when you move and the light hits it in a certain way, it'll catch the eye even more and draw attention. So I really like that. To apply my paint, I didn't want to just apply it with my brush. I felt like I needed to make it a little bit more light. And so I'm using my fingers to rub the paint over the paper after I've applied a little bit of it with my brush. And what this does is it spreads the paint a little bit, and it's still thin enough that you can see the colors underneath it. And then when the light catches the gold, it brings that little something extra that makes it even more special. And of course, that star gold is going to look really, really great over top of the cobalt teal light, because it complements that color really well. And being that it's going to be applied very lightly, it's going to just add that little something extra that will add even more visual interest to the painting. I've added more water to my paint palette, and I've loaded my brush so that I can now start to create some splatters over the painting's surface. My simple little geologic abstract is now complete, so I'm going to pull the tape off the paper and bring you in for a closer look at some of the details. Basically, all that was needed to create this painting was 2 shades of color, some black ink, and a little bit of star gold. I hope this little painting can serve as proof that the art creating process does not need to be complicated. And sometimes the simpler we keep the process, the better it is. Thank you again for making the time to join me on my creative journey. I hope in this little video you'll also find inspiration for your creative journey. I hope you have a wonderful week and happy creating!